pioneers. Together, we are AMD. What we do is much bigger than technology. We're driven to make our industry a better place. We envision the future users want and turn those dreams into reality. We're bold, imaginative, unconstrained by convention. It's in our DNA. Together, we pioneer technology that frees people to push the limits of what is possible. Because we believe that when you give people the freedom to innovate today, amazing things will happen tomorrow. At AMD, we design, we integrate, and we innovate. We do this every day, and you make it happen. We are AMD. Enabling today, inspiring tomorrow.
Welcome to everybody on the webcast as well. We have several hundred of people here with us today. Our 2015 Financial Analyst Day. We have our executive management team here today who are going to give a series of presentations. Lisa Su, our CEO and President, will kick off, followed by Mark Papermaster, who is also going to give us an in-depth review of technology. And then we will go back to Lisa as the interim lead of our computing and graphics segment. We'll take a break for about 15 minutes, and then we will go on to Vinder Kumar, who will come after Forrest Norad, and Forrest is a new face to us here at AMD. He's the lead of our enterprise embedded and semi-custom business. We have a great demo area outside. I hope everybody's had the opportunity to take a look at that, and you'll also have more time at the break to go through it in further detail as you need be. There's a big queue for the Oculus virtual reality demo, so if you haven't tried that out, that certainly will be a lot of fun. I have some cautionary statement guidance update I'd like to give everybody. Before we begin today, let me remind you that today's discussion contains forward-looking statements on the environment as we see them. Those statements are based on current beliefs, assumptions, and expectations, speak only as of the current date, and as such involve risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially from our current expectations. For a detailed discussion about our risk factors, please review our SEC filings or our quarterly AMD reports on Form 10-Q for the quarter ended March 28, 2015. Additionally, please note that non-GAAP financial measures during this meeting are reconciled to the most directly comparable GAAP financial measure in the presentation that will be posted on our website, amd.com. Just a couple of small housekeeping items. We'd appreciate if you would put your phone on silent, please. And if you could refrain to keep your questions and answers to the end of the presentation today. After the break, we'll have a very robust question and answer session for everybody. Last but not least, I'd like to thank all the AMDers who really put this event together today to make it happen. And if you could give us a round of applause, I'd like to introduce AMD's CEO and President, Lisa Su.
Hey, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? I want to really thank you for being here with us today, for those of you here in New York and for everybody on the online webcast. It's a great day for AMD. It's actually an important day for us. It's the first time in over 3 years that we're giving a comprehensive view of our strategy. It's also my first time as CEO of AMD being able to address all of you as our stakeholders in the company. So what I'd like you to take from today is we're going to go through a lot of information. We're going to go through products. We're going to go through technology. We're going to go through financials. We promise we're going to go through financials, but you have to wait for Devinder at the end. But most importantly, I want you to get the spirit of AMD. We are a technology company, and we are here to bring great technologies to the market, and we're going to show you what those are over the next couple of hours. So I'll start with a little bit of a view of where we have a few slides and a few agendas here. So I'll start with my discussion today will be a broad overview of where we're going as a company. I'll start with some of our progress today, because we're really a couple of years into our transformation, and we have made good progress. The market has been changing at an unbelievable pace over the last couple of years, and I'll talk about how the markets have changed and how we, AMD, are participating in those markets. The most important piece is how we're sharpening AMD's focus. Many of you have asked me, what are you going to do as CEO? You know, there are a lot of wonderful things about the company in terms of our technology and our foundation. What I can do is sharpen the focus and make sure that we're spending our resources in the most critical places. Of course, Mark is going to go into detail about our technology and the exciting new technologies that we've been working on. And then finally, all of us will talk about our execution priorities. These are the key things that I wanted to cover today. Now, starting from a little bit about our heritage. You guys know AMD and you know us well, but I wanted to give you sort of my interpretation of AMD. We just celebrated our 46th birthday, actually, on Friday. So Friday, May 1st was our 46th birthday. And if you look at the heritage of the company, I'm actually extremely proud of what we stand for. What we stand for is innovation, technology innovation at our best, ensuring that we do things in the industry that either other people didn't want to do, didn't prioritize, or didn't think were important. That's our history. What are some of those things? The world's first 64-bit x86 processor. That was AMD innovation. As we look at the GPU barrier, breaking a gigahertz, that was an AMD innovation. When you look at the vision that we had over the last 5 years of putting CPUs and GPUs on chip to really build APUs and really drive the next generation of technology. Now, if you look, all PCs, smartphones, tablets, they have some version of APUs. That was something that we recognized over 5 years ago. And then if you look at game consoles and the technology that's changing, you know, we talked about some of the demos out there. The fact that our technology is in all of these innovative products, these are things that are special about AMD. So this is a heritage that I'm extremely proud of, but it's also one that we absolutely need to extend as we look over the next 5 to 10 years. What are those next firsts that are going to be uniquely ours? So a little bit about our progress over the past couple of years. If you look at the heritage of AMD, a lot has been spoken about the PC market, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about the PC market today. The PC market is a big market. It's over 300 million units. There's been a lot of ebbs and flows, sometimes good, sometimes bad. If you look at the AMD business, though, in 2012, our singular focus in life was PCs. Over 90% of our revenue was in the PC market. We decided at that point in time that we needed to diversify our businesses. We had great technologies, but the technologies could apply broader than the PC market. And so we started that diversification activity, and I'm proud of what we've done. At the end of 2013, we had over 30% of our business outside of the PC market in new applications in our enterprise embedded and semi-custom space. By the end of 2014, over 40% of our business in that area. And what we're trying to do is build a company on a very solid foundation of both diversified markets, great technology that go into the places that are going to grow. So this is the story of the last couple of years. And we did make progress, and I'm proud of that progress. But this is really only half the story. The other half of the story is what we're going to talk about over the next couple of hours in terms of really where are we going to complete this diversification of our business. So, no story is set without a foundation of where we are in terms of the current business. And I think there's a lot been written about AMD, and there are positives and negatives. And I want to acknowledge those going forward. So, what are some of the challenges? I said earlier, there's been a lot said about the PC market, and there will be a lot more said about the PC market. The PC market is a bit volatile. Last year was better than expected in 2014. This year, at least the first half of 2015, worse than expected. It has affected our business. We've also had some channel inventory issues that we have been correcting over the past couple of quarters. I'm happy to report, though, that is making good progress on track to what we thought it was going to do. I also want to acknowledge that we have had some market share losses in some of our key businesses. And many of you will ask, well, how do we expect to reverse those market share losses? We'll talk about that today, for sure. And then when I look at the positives, though, when you think about what we have done over the past couple of years, this is fundamentally a different company. we have grown an entirely new business in EESC that's over $2 billion at the end of 2014. We absolutely have gained share in profitable areas of the market. We've talked about commercial. We've talked about professional graphics. We've talked about gaming being a huge driver of our growth. And as we look forward, embedded, and we're going to talk quite a bit today about data center, will be growth areas for us going forward. And Devinder is going to talk about the balance sheet and the importance of the balance sheet, ensuring that we manage our cash well and ensuring that our near-term debt maturities were pushed out. All of that was done in the past couple of years. But one of the most important things for today is to ensure that you understand where are we focusing our investments, because that is key, to ensure that we focus our investments in the places where we will get the most bang for our buck. So, I want to start with 2015 expectations, because I feel like if I don't cover this chart, I might not get you to listen to the next hour or two. The 2015 expectations, we gave guidance a couple of weeks ago at our earnings call about the second quarter of 2015. Normally, we wouldn't give long-term guidance. However, to ensure that we answer some of the questions about where our business is going and where we see things are going, I'd like to give you some high-level view of the financials, and Devinder will go through more detail when we go into the financial section. So, first half of 15, we've talked about. It is a weaker than expected PC market. We do have some channel inventory rebalancing that we are doing. And from a product standpoint, most of our new products will actually launch in the second half of the year. So we have reported and we have guided that we'll lose money in the first half of the year. No one enjoys losing money. That's certainly something that we believe we need to correct. As you look into the second half of the year, what do we see in the market? We do see seasonal improvement in both PCs, gaming, and our other markets. That's expected based on some of the factors in the market as well as some of the product announcements. Our product announcements as well as our partner product announcements with Windows 10. We expect that that will make the second half of the year stronger. In terms of what we're looking at being profitable in the second half of the year. And then importantly, on the cash question, Devinder is going to go through the cash drivers in quite a bit of detail so you can see the pluses and minuses as we go forward. We will be approximately at $800 million of cash at the end of the first half of 15, but we expect that to be somewhere between $800 and $1 billion as we go into the second half of 15. So hopefully that grounds you a bit on our assessment of 2015. Again, we have some issues in the first half of the year. We expect the first half to be the trough of our business, and we expect the second half of the year to be better than the first. So that gives you a little bit of a view of 2015. Now, let me talk about our game plan. So our game plan is really a 3 to 5 year game plan of how do we really change the mix of our business, ensure that we're growing in profitable areas, expand our margins, and expand our cash generation. That's really the thought process. And how do we get there? It's a combination of technology, products, markets, as well as execution. So we talked about this 2015, the second half of the year. I'm going to talk in some detail about our 2015 products in the computing and graphics section. And Forrest will talk about our 2015 products in the enterprise embedded and semi-custom section. So you'll get a view of the product ramp that we expect in the second half of the year. In 2016, what do we expect? We expect to gain profitable share in graphics, in certain areas of the PC segment, and I'll talk about those areas, in embedded, and then we had previously reported 2 semi-custom design wins at the end of last year that are in process and are in development. We expect those to ramp in the second half of 2016, and so that will be a revenue driver for us going forward. And then as we go forward into the medium term, going into the 2017 and 18 timeframe, we're going to talk about server and infrastructure. This is an incredibly exciting area for us. We're probably going to spend more time on it than we've spent in a long time to show you our story of why we believe this will be a long-term both revenue, margin driver, and profitability driver for the company. So that gives you kind of a couple of steps that we will go through over the next couple of years. Now, in terms of the market, I want to define what are the markets that AMD is uniquely capable of participating in. So let's just start with a broad view of the market. And you guys know this really well. Everybody's talking about the Internet of Things. So what are the Internet of Things? It's the idea that you have a bunch of endpoint devices, both sensor and compute driven, that are connected through a network into the cloud where you're able to sense, analyze, and process all of that data. Incredible growth. Cisco says over 50 billion devices by 2020. Incredible use for computing horsepower in every part of it. I will say, though, the last 5 years, most of the conversation has been about the endpoints and what the endpoints are going to do. Now, as we look forward to the next 5 years, we see growth in a couple of areas. And as they relate to AMD, what we are looking for are the places that use high-performance compute, high-performance graphics, visualization technologies, complex system on chips. So where do you expect that? We expect that the intelligent controllers will become more intelligent. The idea that we're going to get much more intuitive in how we use devices. We expect that this entire back-end backbone, whether you're talking about the networking or cloud infrastructure, is going to be significantly increased, improved in terms of the ability to store, manage, analyze, use that data, and there's a lot of computing growth in there. So when you look at the AMD TAM, and I know there are a lot of analysts in the audience here, so my TAMs are approximate TAMs, we think there's about a $60 billion TAM in here. It's a really very strong area of growth. And the areas that we're focused on are the areas that require high-performance compute, graphics, visualization technologies. Those are the areas that are uniquely suited for AMD. Okay, so I'm going to spend a few minutes on this chart, and I'm going to do that for the sake of, as important as it is to say where we are going to invest, it's important for us to say where we're not going to invest. So if you take that entire IoT market, I'm going to sub-segment it into 3 key market segments: gaming, immersive platforms, and data center infrastructure. We're going to spend a lot of time on those areas over the next couple of hours to talk about the technology that's suited for this, as well as our products and our differentiation. We like these markets. This is the $60 billion TAM that we're talking about. As important is where we will not invest. And where we will not invest, it's always hard to say because somebody's going to criticize, well, why aren't you doing that? But when you look at the technology that's needed, IoT endpoints, very interesting silicon consumer. More low-end microcontrollers and sensors, not really conducive to AMD technology. When you look at low-end tablets and smartphones, again, big silicon consumers, not necessarily aligned to where our technology specialties are. And so we won't be spending as much time in those areas. We will talk a lot about the technology, and I don't want to say it's all about the technology, but it's pretty much all about the technology. It's extraordinarily important to ensure that we have competitive high-performance cores. And I'm going to use those words, competitive high-performance cores, and ask you to listen to Mark Papermaster when he talks about our roadmap. Now, in terms of other decisions, we've also made some other decisions that we've talked about before, but I'd like to go into a little bit more detail. We have reduced our low-end PC exposure. What does that mean? When you looked at AMD's historical business, we were very, very heavily concentrated in the consumer low-end PCs. That was actually our specialty. However, when you look at that market, there's been so much volatility, especially at the intersection of tablets and PCs, and the differentiation isn't really there. So we've reduced some of our exposure in that area, and some of the market share losses that we've seen in consumer PCs have been related to that. We also looked deeply at the data center business and said, where do we think we can really uniquely add differentiation? Which part of the market should we go after? Boris Norred is a data center specialist. He's going to talk about it in great detail. But we made a decision to exit the C-micro dense server system business. One, because microservers were not growing as fast as originally thought. And two, we really aren't a systems company. And so this was an opportunity for us to focus. However, on the silicon side, very, very clearly, we are an x86 company. We have tremendous x86 heritage. We have an opportunity to really lead in that area. We're absolutely going to invest in high-performance x86. And on ARM, what we're adding is additional TAM. There are certain segments of the market that have high affinity to x86, like PCs and traditional servers. There are certain segments of the market that have high affinity to ARM, like networking and storage and other embedded applications. And so that is one of the reasons that we've decided to invest in the ARM side. We're also simplifying our roadmap. And simplifying our roadmap means there are certain things that we were doing before that we're going to not do now. For example, last year, we talked about the idea of doing socket-compatible x86 and ARM devices. We called that Project Skybridge. As we talk to customers, customers really want x86 and ARM from us, but they don't necessarily need them in socket-compatible versions. And so we're going to focus on differentiated solutions in each one of those areas. So that's what I mean by simplifying our roadmap. All right, so a little bit about the markets. And as I said, we're going to spend quite a bit of time on these. We love gaming. Gaming's a great market. Immersive platforms, I'll explain a little bit more. And then data center, we will lean into as well. So first, on gaming. Gaming is a great market. AMD has been investing in this for the last decade. When we look at how much horsepower, both on computing and graphics, are needed in gaming, it's really, really amazing. It's not just where we are today, as we go through some of the key inflection points, moving up in the display capability, going to 4K, as well as some of the other applications. It's some of the things that we're seeing in virtual reality. And as Ruth said, if you haven't seen virtual reality in action, you actually must, because it is an amazing thing. In terms of where our business today, this is the biggest segment of our business. It's about $3 billion in annual revenue. That's including game consoles, that's including PC gaming, graphics, as well as our embedded gaming. This is a nice market for us. We're going to continue to grow in this market because we believe gaming will continue to grow going forward. Immersive platforms. What are we trying to say here? In immersive platforms, we're choosing those portions of the IoT connected device world that really bring to life natural user interfaces. The idea that we want to communicate with our devices in ways that are much more intuitive and much more interactive going forward. There's an incredible use of computing technology in this area. And again, Mark and I will cover it a little bit more later. And it's a broad set of applications that goes beyond entertainment, but really goes into industrial applications, engineering capability, analytics capability that Forrest will talk about. Again, this is about $1.5 billion of our revenue today. It's primarily in the PC portion of the platforms, as well as some of our embedded business. We see this market going to over $20 billion over the next couple of years as well, really led by some of the work in virtual reality and augmented reality that we've been talking about. And then finally, data center. Data center, as I said, is a place that we're going to spend time today. This is probably the single biggest bet that we're making as a company. So what we'll lay out for you today is a comprehensive data center strategy. Why we think it's important, why we win, why we have the technology, why we have sustained competitive advantage. This is a place that AMD has absolutely been successful. We have not been competitive the last few years based on some of our investment choices. We will be competitive in the data center market. This piece of our business is less than $300 million today. If you look at the total TAM of data center and add networking and storage components of it as well, that's a $15 billion TAM. That's margin accretive business that plays directly into where we're investing our capabilities. So to try to now give you a little bit more deeper framework, and I know it's all about the details for this group, we've laid out gaming, immersive, and data center across our computing and graphics and enterprise embedded and semi-custom business. We've sub-segmented the market as to where are the most important places for us to play. We're number one today in game consoles and gaming. We're going to continue to invest in that area. In terms of near-term opportunities, we absolutely have the technology to gain share in graphics. Mark will talk about some of that technology. In the PC platforms, we will be focusing our PC platforms on commercial as well as high-end consumer that can really utilize all of our visualization technology. Forrest will talk about some of the embedded opportunities as well. And then in data center, this is practically greenfield for us. We know the market, we know what's necessary. This is our medium-term growth opportunity for the company. So, How do we win in terms of technology investments? I'm not going to steal all of Mark's thunder, but I will say a couple of things. Pay attention to what he says about CPUs. CPUs, both next generation x86 and ARM cores, this is a multi-generational investment for us. We're extraordinarily excited about the technology in this area. Graphics technology, it's always been a horse race in graphics. It'll continue to be a horse race in graphics, but I will say that there are areas that we will double down and focus. We'll announce, for example, today one of our first graphics products that will use high bandwidth memory. That's a first for the industry. We will talk about our performance per watt leadership as well as some of the new features that we're putting in for virtual reality. That's leadership. And then on the platform side, Mark and I have been part of AMD for a couple of years. And some of you ask, well, what have you guys been doing for a couple of years? The truth is, it takes a while to really transform both the R&D capability, the technology, and the modularity. So Mark's going to talk in detail about that. But these are the places where we're really focusing our technology investments. I want to talk about market share, because market share is key. What is the most important thing for us? It's gaining profitable market share. Where are the areas that people truly value AMD technology? In the near term, it's going to be our second half product ramps that I'll talk about in a little while. We will see the seasonality improvement, as I said. In the midterm, in 2016, we have our semi-custom and embedded design wins that we've won that will be in the process of ramping. I believe we will gain graphics and commercial share. We have our commercial lead here, and there's been a lot of focus in this area. And then as we go forward, it's really about our first strong data center portfolio over the last 5+ years. I think that will be a key driver. I also wanted to give some additional color on our semi-custom pipeline, because we often get asked about our semi-custom pipeline. Our semi-custom pipeline, you should think about, semi-custom is a business model. It's a business model for how you build deep relationships with customers. We've now had a chance to go through several cycles of semi-custom, and what we've seen is customers who start with us in standard products over time see the need for semi-custom as a way to specialize. So I won't give details about the semi-custom pipeline, but I will say that we expect to sign another semi-custom design win this quarter, in the second quarter, that will ramp revenue in the 2017-2018 timeframe. So that gives you a picture of, these are the markers that we're looking for in terms of returning profitable share growth. Now, in terms of the long-term financial model, again, Devinder is going to go through the long-term financial model in gory detail as we get towards the end of the presentation. I just wanted to give you a flavor of how we're thinking about the business, because it'll give you a flavor of some of the decisions that we're making in terms of where we invest. We've talked about the transition of our business from a PC-centric business to one that's more balanced between enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom. We're going to continue that diversification of revenue. We expect, and when I say target, I mean target as, let's call it 3 to 5 years. We expect that our revenue will exceed 50% in our new businesses, our enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom. But PCs will continue to be a large piece of our portfolio, and there are segments that we think we can grow there. In terms of where we're targeting, it really is about targeting earnings per share growth and overall profitability of the company. And so we've set a 50 cents EPS share target. Devinder will go through a number of the different ranges in other things like OPEX and gross margin and so on and so forth. But that's what we're looking for as our 3 to 5 year model going forward from a financial standpoint. So I want to make sure as we close this introductory portion that I also give you an idea of what we're trying to do at AMD beyond the technology. We've talked about technology, we've talked about markets, we've talked about products and market share drivers. I want to spend a few minutes on the culture of the company. So when I took over as CEO, everybody asked, what do you want to do? What is most important to you? And yes, there are many business things that are very important to me, but it was very, very important to me that I set the culture of the company. And the culture of a company is really a little bit of a return to our heritage. We are a technology company. We have been at our best when we have delivered technology on the leading edge, and we've taken bold risks, and we've come out with something that nobody else has done. So our first and total priority is around building great products. Building great products. If you ask any engineer in AMD, what are they doing today? It's about building great products. And understanding, that's what we stand for. Those products need to be informed by markets and deep customer relationships. We want to make our customers incredibly successful. And we've done that. You know, when you look at the work that we've done with Sony and Microsoft, I'm incredibly proud of what we've done there. That's the culture that we're trying to drive. And the last point is, hey, it's not that complicated, okay? We don't need to do everything. We need to pick the things that we can do and do them really, really well. This is the culture, this is the mission, this is what we're trying to do from an overall AMD standpoint. So let me close by telling you a few things. I'm very excited about what we're doing. I'm very cognizant of the near-term challenges that we have, but also the long-term opportunities. So I think what you're going to hear from us over the next couple of presentations is detail on where those opportunities are, where we're prioritizing, why we believe we have a roadmap for profitable shared growth. So thank you very much for your attention. With that, I'm going to introduce Mark Papermaster, our CTO. Mark?
Thank you, Lisa. All right. Look, I have fun talking about technology, and there's never been a more proud day than today to talk about what we've been at. What have we been working on the last several years, which we think will be quite impactful on the industry. And you know, and I'll connect it to what Lisa talked about. Our focus, gaming, immersive platforms, data center. And you know, really, when you look at these trends, you know, you can say, well, there's something just very simple in terms of what is a driving force in the need for technology. First is in front of the screen. It's the perception we have. It's how we're interacting with computing so that it can be useful. And of course, it's what's behind the screen, the computing. When you look at what's driving this change of need and requirements of visualization, it's pretty clear. You see it around you because it is the billions of connected devices. What is that doing? It's creating a massive amount of information. It's the sensors which are embedded in every device you deal with. It's the cameras you see everywhere and the flood of video information transport. It's the analytics that businesses in almost every vertical are creating a massive amount of data that you need to then analyze and make useful. So it's fundamentally changing the needs and requirements to high-resolution displays and multiple displays and whole new categories of how you deal with information for, you know, from both entertainment, really using that information in virtual reality and augmented reality where you can actually manipulate that data. So the needs of visualization are absolutely in an inflection point. And of course, how do you analyze that data? That flood of data that you have needs that heavy lifting. And it's seamless between what you're using in your device. That's where you're actually, you need to do some computation in device, but it can't accomplish that heavy lifting without an assist from the cloud. So those are the markets we're focusing on, and that is where we've been doubling down in terms of the building blocks at AMD. You know, no surprise, it starts with the engines. So you look at the CPUs, we have redoubled our focus and new design work on CPUs, both ARM and x86. We've redoubled our focus on graphics. So we've always had a leadership. It's always a leapfrog race of leadership in graphics. We've maintained that pace, but we're uniquely positioned to have a leadership CPU capability, graphics capability, and the ability to put them together in a very seamless way. It's not just the engines, right? And that's really a significant change in culture in AMD as well, because it is about delivering solutions at the end of the day. And so we've been investing in the software and the accelerators to actually unlock the value, right? It's not about just putting out great engines and saying, here, industry, have at it. We've got to enable that. And so we've made significant advances, APIs that have driven tremendous improvement in graphics performance. We have hardware codecs to allow seamless 4K video streaming. We have a software enablement for emerging workloads that really can use both the CPU, GPU standalone or, in fact, together on an APU. And one thing that should be very clear to all of us, when you look at some of the data breaches, security breaches that have occurred in just the last year and a half, is the fundamental need for security. And that's a core competence. You can look at the work we did with game consoles and what we've done across our roadmap. It's a core competence we have, and security has to be a part of every product which we deliver. So with that, what I'd like to do is dive down a little bit. So I'm going to walk through each of these and tell you what we've been up to. And I'm going to start with the cores. You know, you think about it, Lisa said it. It's hard and it's unfortunate, it's the nature of our technology business. It's not software. You don't rewrite a line of code. It's not just hardware. It's software and hardware coming together. And the longest lead time is the core development. And so what we've been doing the last, I'd say 2.5 years at this point, we have put together a new x86 core. This is a ground-up new microarchitecture. We're very proud of it. We're going to share a little bit of the information on it today. And you know, what is this core? This core is about high performance. We don't back away at all from the energy efficiency that we've been designing into our x86 CPUs, but we've doubled down on the performance characteristics of the Zen core. It's got features for very high throughput, like simultaneous multi-threading. It's got a very efficient design. You have to feed the core. You have to be able to feed it with high bandwidth, with low latency. So we have a new cache subsystem and a new memory subsystem to be able to feed this new core. And very key is FinFET technology, because we've married all of the design management techniques we've had with FinFET, and it gives us excellent scalability. We can take the Zen core from battery dependent mobile devices right through enterprise class compute capability. This is a core design for the workloads of the future. Availability next year. We're completing that design this year. We'll have availability next year. And I'd like to explain to you a little bit about the performance and how we built that performance. It starts with the previous family. Because what have we been doing with the previous family, from the bulldozer core introduction in 2012 to the excavator core that we just released? It's coming up shortly in our 6th generation APU. That's the excavator core. We've been doing incremental instruction per clock, incremental microarchitecture changes, and driving the energy efficiency in a big way of this previous generation core. It, again, culminates in that excavator core release this summer. It has a 40% improvement in energy efficiency, and we packed the density by almost a third of previous generation. So tremendous advancements as we've ratcheted the previous generation. That wasn't going to get us back to where we needed to be in high performance cores. And what we did with the investment is there's not any one thing you can do. Jim Keller came on board, heads up our cores team, and he rallied and brought the team together and focused on not one silver bullet, but a number of elements to drive the microarchitecture improvement and deliver what I've not seen in the industry before, a 40% improvement in instruction per clock. It's quite remarkable, and again, it's a result of many elements done quite well to deliver that type of microarchitectural improvement. And we're not stopping there. One of the key things that we have to do at AMD is have sustained innovation. We're not going to do a flash in the pan with the new core that we come out with next year. We want regular updates. We want to stay on the pace. And so we have leapfrogging design teams. Our next generation core is already well underway, and what you'll see is a family of cores over time. So this is a huge commitment from AMD and a commitment to have sustainable innovation. So we're very excited about our core work, and you'll hear more of the presentation as to how that rolls out in our product roadmap and the impact it has on the markets that we can serve. Okay, I want to talk about ARM, give you an update. We announced the K12 core at a session we had last year, and we said we had a V8, ARM V8 architectural license. And we've made great progress. The team has leveraged that license. We brought the core up. We have it up and running in simulation. And what we've done, to give you the update, is we've chosen to really leverage the synergy with our x86 core work. It's all one core team. We don't run it as two separate efforts. And so what we're doing is fully leveraging that synergy. We have put the availability in 2017. We've aligned it with our customer needs, market needs, and the ARM ecosystem for enterprise applications coming together. So that's the update on K-12, and it's on track for 2017 sampling. All right, the other side of the core equation is, of course, the graphics. And you know, this is where AMD has such a long history of graphics innovation. And you know, I'll go back to not by any means the beginning of that long history in the ATI heritage, but I'm going to go back to 2012, where we rolled out Graphics Core Next, new architecture for our Radeon graphics. And when we did this, it was quite revolutionary because it didn't just bring a new high performance bar, which it did with the R9 290, but it did more than that. With Graphics Core Next, it provided an architecture to make it easier to write optimizing compilers, to make it easier for programmers to unlock the value of our graphics, both for visualization and compute. Really a groundbreaking architecture, and you can see the adoptions. So it's, of course, our discrete graphics business, but much more than that. It's in the game consoles. You see it in the Mac Pro. You see it in the iMac with the 5K Retina display. You see it in leading workstation designs, server installations. It's scalable from mobile applications to high-performance computing applications, and it's got an install base of over 100 million for developers to leverage. This has been a very, very successful architecture, and we've built on it. We built on it in the last 2 years by really accelerating the performance with APIs. Mantle shook the industry as we showed that you could eliminate intervening layers of software and rapidly increase the draw calls, the visualization capability of our graphics core. We've added advanced memory with compression techniques. We've added virtualization of our graphics. We've added a set of capabilities in virtual reality that we're very excited about, and we're going to talk about over the course of the day here. And we've added high bandwidth memory, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail in just a second. Raja Kaduri and his team on graphics are not stopping. Like the CPU cores, we're working always on the next generations. And what you'll see is we're taking our graphics also into FinFET technology. We're going to push our graphics to have all that same leverage, and we're tweaking the GCN to make it even more energy efficient. In fact, as we release our 3rd generation GCN, it will have a 2x energy efficiency improvement, and we're going to drive yet further optimizations on workloads that we are already seeing excel on GCN, such as machine learning and a number of artificial intelligence applications. So graphics technology, we've been delivering. We're very excited. There's more innovation to come. And I want to dive down into high bandwidth memory for just a moment. This is quite a feat. We've actually been working on high bandwidth memory for almost 7 years. Why? It involves, frankly, an ecosystem. It's what are we doing at AMD with our technology? What are the memory vendors providing? And the packaging ecosystem to put it together. The whole supply chain has to come together to deliver HBM. And when you do, it provides dramatic results. Because what HBM does is it stacks the high bandwidth memory DRAM using through silicon vias to allow a 3D stacking of that DRAM technology. We then connect it through a silicon interposer to our discrete graphics chip. So it's not going off chip in those connections from the memory to the graphics. Well, what does that do? What that means when you're not driving off chip is you are more compact and you require far less power. And that's why we're able, with HBM technology, to deliver significant improvement. We'll see over 3x performance per watt improvement versus graphics, DDR5 memory, which is deployed in AMD products and across the industry. It's a 50% power savings. This is quite impactful, and we're excited as we roll it out this year in our discrete graphics roadmap. So more on that to come as we talk about our products shortly. All right, let's keep going. Let's talk about putting this together, putting the solutions together. The engines are critically important. They're the foundation that we build everything on, our CPU and graphics. But again, we've doubled down our focus on the enablement. And what I want to do is start with really a discussion on energy efficiency. So in every segment that we play, energy efficiency matters. It's the battery life in mobile. It's the total cost of ownership in the data center. You can't compete if you don't have the technology to bring energy efficiency in every market that you play. And we've made a lot of progress. You know, we have brought a 10x improvement over the last 6 years. If you look up to 2014, it's 10x improvement in energy efficiency in our mobile designs. That's not where we're going. We're committing to a 25x improvement in energy efficiency between now and 2020. And we're well on the way with Carrizo, our 6th generation APU. It's driven by the enhancements in the excavator core and much more than that, because we drove design elements. Of course, it's hardware design elements with clock gating and power islands and all of the techniques of the IP elements, but it's much more than that. It's across the software stack. It's through managing power on the display. It's all the elements that need to bring together. Excellent step with Carrizo, much more to come. So energy efficiency has and remains vital and front and center in our R&D development efforts at AMD. Next, I want to talk about security. I mentioned it earlier. It's simply fundamental, because what you're seeing is software alone is insufficient. You can have various techniques and software layers, but you have to have is a combination of the software working seamlessly with the hardware. And we have, with the AMD Secure Processor, established across all of our designs going forward, our new designs that we're working on, we're embedding in each of them this AMD Secure Processor, which establishes a root of trust upon boot. So every access that you do from boot on is authenticated. It leverages an A5 embedded controller. It leverages an AMD cryptographic engine. And from a software standpoint, in partnership with ARM, it's leveraging Trust Zone. So it's creating a software ecosystem that's then easy to build software applications that ride on that hardware root of trust that we established from the moment you boot up an AMD processor. It's a requirement going forward. You have to provide security, and we do with the secure processor. You know, next I want to talk about our programming model. And this has really been, you know, a huge investment for us. And I'll go back to 3 years ago when we rolled out the Heterogeneous System Architecture Foundation. AMD was a founding member. We invited other companies to join us, and over 40 did, because we're committed to open platforms. And what we said is we wanted to unlock the value of CPUs and GPUs working together, and CPUs and accelerators working together, because it takes more than just the foundry node to keep pace with the Moore's Law rate of improvement on performance. You have to provide other acceleration methods, and that's what we're doing at AMD. We have delivered capability on track. So if you look at the end of last year, the compiler for the heterogeneous system architecture was delivered. Our OpenCL 2.0 support for AMD products was delivered. So excellent progress, again, on an open approach with that HSA to unlock the value. So this is coherent memory access across CPU and GPU. This is, you know, context, preemptive switching, so you can immediately context switch between the CPU and GPU. And what it means is performance. And you'll hear, again, over the course of the day, how we're realizing that performance in real-world applications. And for those that are with us here in New York today, we have demonstrations of that capability in our products. Machine learning. I am very, very excited about machine learning, or deep neural nets. Why? It's an inherently parallel operation. And it's actually proving to be a transformation effect on a number of industries. I've worked with some startups that were working on various algorithms, various optimizations, and they were running into basically dry wells. They were running out of the computing capability they needed to solve their difficult problems. And what they've realized is, with machine learning, it uses an algorithm. It's a gradient descent analysis. It's an optimization algorithm. It's well known in the technical community, and it's highly parallelizable. And when you take applications that can leverage machine learning, we can provide a very, very rapid speed up with our AMD technology. And of course, you have to provide the software enablement. What's out there today is widely deployed Torch 7 and Caffe. But actually, most of the implementations today, most of those implementations are in proprietary code. And that's not what we're about. So we have mapped Caffe and Torch 7 to an open source approach, putting it out there to run on our Radeon and our FirePro graphics. And we'll be releasing that through the open source. We'll have that available in the second half of this year. And then Liquid VR and all of the work that we're doing around virtual reality. This is a new category. And when you look at what we've done is we're leveraging capabilities that we have in Graphics Core Next, and we're building upon them. So I talked about asynchronous compute engine. It's actually in our first generation of Graphics Core Next when we released it in 2012. We are leveraging that in a way that's turned out to be essential for virtual reality. Because if you're in a virtual environment, you can't break the presence. If you have a delay, too long a delay, if you see a break in the image, you break presence. You have a very unsettling experience rather than a virtual immersive experience. And the asynchronous compute engines provide a capability we call time warp. So as you traverse and you move around in a virtual environment, while we're rendering the space that you're looking at, we are actually in parallel calculating the images and doing a matrix shift as you look elsewhere. It's quite impactful, and when you see this in the demonstration, you'll see it provides a very smooth experience in virtual reality workloads. And there's more. We'll talk more later about some of the additional features that we have in virtual reality. So, doubled down investment in software and our programming enablement. Okay. Last piece I want to talk about in terms of our platform enablement is our modularity. You can say, why is Mark talking about modularity? Isn't this sort of just blocking and tackling kind of stuff? It's actually not. It's very hard to do because it affects every piece of how you put a system on a chip together. It creates it's a technological challenge, and frankly, it's a cultural challenge because it drives every team to do their work in a different way than they have for years. And frankly, modularity has transformed every industry that's adopted it. Look at the automotive industry. Look at Ford. Ford adopted modularity and fundamentally changed their ability to get products to market and to leverage technology across their product lines. And you can look at other industries and see that same impact of modularity. We've brought modularity to high-performance system on a chip, and it is transformative. Because what we've done is actually put a protocol, a standard way of interconnect around each of our building blocks, each of our IPs. We've leveraged our experience in coherent hypertransport. We built upon it. So we had a fabric, an interconnect that was proven, and we built upon it to create a high-performance, scalable interconnect for our IP that we put it together, third-party IP as well, and then we've actually made it extensible off-chip. So this is a very, very capable AMD network on chip. And it's what it really allows us to do is have tremendous flexibility in how we put our solutions together. It can be ARM. It can be x86. It's ISA agnostic in terms of how you put this together. Again, third-party IP. So very, very flexible, and we've implemented modularity into our entire methodology. Our power management, our test, all of the elements that have typically been in centralized units, we've decentralized. So to, again, allow us to be much more agile in putting these solutions together. It's a quicker time to market, and it's actually a higher quality at the end of the day as you can leverage more reuse across your portfolio. And that's what I want to talk to you about, because this is how now we'll be putting our solutions together, is in this modular approach. So when you have a chip that we talk about, Forrest will talk about his business in the data center. Obviously, that's a very high demand on CPU technology. And so you configure with a very high CPU content on that system on a chip. Likewise, for client and embedded SoCs, many applications that leverage heterogeneity. And so they're going to have CPU cores and GPU cores in combination. And then the discrete graphics, where you load up as many GCN cores as you fit given the potential, the target market that you're after. So you need to be able to scale across the graphic stack, and it takes several implementations, and we can very rapidly tune our implementations for that market. But what's common across all of these, of course, is the software. It's all of our drivers. It's all of the capability that we have that marries with each of the hardware blocks, and it's our accelerator capability and its security. So those are constant across those capabilities while we can change the other elements. And then what's particularly exciting is what this modularity means for our semi-custom business. Because as I said, we designed our AMD network on chip to be able to fold in not only third-party IP, but a customer's IP. And so it allows us to be more agile as well in our semi-custom business and lower our time to market with our customers in this business. Modularity can be transformative, and that's what we're doing with this approach at AMD. Okay, we're out of time. I want to wrap up. Look, I don't know how to say this. Then, we were really clear on our goal with the Zen design, and it's getting right back into that competitive, high-performance CPU. And, you look at the market out there, it's a wide-open space, as you heard from Lisa, in terms of bringing competition back to high-performance x86. Graphics, we're going to continue the pedal to the metal. It's always been a fight. They'll continue a fight. We like our path. We've invested. We will deliver. And of course, that modularity that I just talked about, the flexibility that it brings and the solutions that we put around it. So in summary, what I'm going to tell you is, I'm an industry veteran, and so I've had the opportunity to work and the pleasure of being able to work on a number of impactful products to the market. So it's been a great number of years I've been in the industry, but I've never been more proud of the innovation and the tenacity of the team, of any team, compared to the team I have here we're working with in AMD. We have been focusing on reloading our war chest of technology, and we're ready for the fight. So thank you very much, and with that, Lisa, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Well, it's hard to follow Mark with all of that great technology, but what I'll try to do in this section is both Forrest and I are going to talk about the products. How do we take that technology into our product roadmap to get to profitable share gains? A lot has been said about the computing and graphics business. I said it earlier. The PC market is a big market. It's a good market. It goes through volatile swings from time to time, and we're in one of those swings at the moment. That being the case, it is one of the markets that truly values computing and graphics technology. And that is what we're investing in. So what are the key things that we're trying to do with this business? Obviously, the overarching goal is profitable market share. And as I said, Devinder will go through some of those drivers when he goes through his pieces. From a strategy standpoint, it's really focused on 4 areas. It is building great processors. Okay, we can only do that with the technology that Mark is enabling and that Mark's team is building. Those new CPU cores are going to give us a step function improvement in our competitiveness going forward. Winning in graphics. We love graphics, we love gaming, winning those key inflection points going forward. And then perhaps 2 areas that are slightly different. When you think about AMD, I want you to think about the designs that are uniquely designed to our IP. So when you look at, for example, in game consoles, Sony and Microsoft designed their systems around our system on chip, and those are phenomenal systems. In computing and graphics, sometimes we're part of second-party designs, so it'll be a design that, same system, you can use our chip or our competitor's chip. Or there are places where we are uniquely differentiating. For example, the Apple Mac Pro system, or the 5K display in the iMac. Those are areas where when people design to our technology, that fully leverages and monetizes AMD IP. So we are absolutely going to lean into those areas when we talk about the computing and graphics business in terms of changing the game and how technology is utilized. And then the last point is around open platforms and industry innovation. Okay, we are not confused. The world is not all about us. We're one piece of it. We provide silicon, we provide solutions. We need the ecosystem partners to be there as well. So our approach is going to be about open innovation, and that's why we talked about some of the things in Mark's presentation. Forrest will talk about it more, but it is about enabling the ecosystem like we've done in the past. Okay, so the markets, again, these markets we talked about, gaming, immersive platforms, big markets, over $40 billion of TAM in these markets going forward. They greatly utilize our technology. What I'm going to do now is give you a preview of our 2015 products. So these are not product launches, so the product launches will actually be in the coming weeks at some of the industry events. But I will give you a view of where the products are going and what are differentiating things in our products. Let me start first with graphics. Winning the gaming inflection points. Leadership in gaming, leadership in visualization, this is really critical. We are focused in our 2015 product lineup on some of the key inflection points. DX12, 4K display resolutions and performance there, and virtual reality and everything it takes to enable virtual reality. So, in terms of our 2015 graphics lineup, today we are announcing our mobile product lineup. So we are refreshing our entire mobile line with the M300 series of graphics processors. These are appearing in our OEM systems today, and you'll see over the next couple of weeks announcements from our OEM partners. Very focused on improved power efficiency, very focused on DX12 enablement and leadership there, and also on dual graphics capability. These are out and in the marketplace. Now, coming later this quarter is a big, big change for us, introducing our new desktop GPUs in AMD. We've talked about picking up the inflection points, investing in technologies, knowing that they're going to make a huge difference in the marketplace, and then picking the right time to introduce them. That's always the important thing. We are going to introduce a full-up lineup in our AIB channel starting later this quarter, and it is going to focus on the key areas that I talked about. DX12, VR enablement, superior 4K gameplay, but the most exciting piece of it is what we're doing on the enthusiast side, and it is really the unveiling of our next generation graphics technology using high bandwidth memory. I'm not going to name it today because, again, I'm not doing a product launch. We will launch this later in the second quarter over the next few weeks. But this technology is really, truly revolutionary. When we think about what's important at this time frame for enthusiast gamers, it's about enabling that next generation of experience, okay? 4K displays are coming down in price points. They're enabling lots of people to have them. We want to lead in that area. What does high bandwidth memory do? Mark gave you the speeds and feeds about the power efficiency and the memory bandwidth. But when it comes to something like this, it really is, it changes the game for how you can put this level of performance in this type of card. And if you think about it, with the memory now on die versus on card, it allows you to enable new form factors. We have a bunch of exciting form factors that we're going to talk about as we launch this product, but we think it will really bring a new level of performance to the industry. And this technology is really just at the starting point. You know, we're going to talk about graphics today. There are also conversations about HBM2, but when you look across the industry, we have the computing and graphics components that can come together, and HBM can be utilized to bring up that capability. So very excited about what we're doing there. I also want to talk about software and the inflection points around software. So if you remember a couple of years ago, As we started working with the game console manufacturers, we were amazed at how much performance they could get out of our graphics technology that the PC gamers were not experiencing. It was just, it was like night and day when you have programmers that are programming to your hardware. So we decided we can bring some of those features to the PC gaming market. That's when we introduced the Mantle API. The Mantle API was about making the hardware easier to use with a thinner software layer so that we could really unlock the performance for PC gamers. And it was really an industry first in thinking for the PC market. Now, in the industry, others have adopted similar technologies. DX12, Metal, as well as Vulkan from the OpenGL group. We think this is really good. This is about enabling the ecosystem to solve new problems. And we are absolutely optimizing our products for the DX12 ecosystem. Now, what's next? What's next for us is what's the next big problem that needs to be solved? It is the virtual reality problem. So Mark started this, and I'll probably say it in a little bit more, I'll call it plain words than the techie words. What is the problem that we're trying to solve in VR? It really is about presence. We are trying to create a new form factor, and in the way that you work in these, there we go. We're trying to create a new way of experiencing devices, and it's the idea of full virtual reality. When you want to experience a 3D image, you want to be able to keep up. It's all about the latency. If you can't keep up, and if you move and the image doesn't move, you'll actually get motion sick, or something like that. This is probably the toughest problem to solve in graphics. It's the toughest problem to solve. When you think about rendering that much information over a 10 millisecond time frame, that's a tough problem. Our engineers saw that this was a tough problem, and we said we want to develop a solution for it, and we call it Liquid VR by AMD. We announced this at the Game Developers Conference in March. It's about helping software developers solve the problems, and our graphics cards and our compute capability will really be focused on that. Some of the features that we're looking at, Mark talked about some of these things, asynchronous shaders to minimize latency, developing technologies that really allow head tracking. It's hard for me to describe in a chart. It's really important to experience. This technology has advanced faster than anybody would have expected. The last 6 months has been an incredible advance in capability. I think the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months will be key to bring this forward. And AMD is investing heavily in this area. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let me talk about computing and what we're doing in computing. So later this quarter, we will also be announcing our 2015 computing lineup. And this is our AMD 6th generation A-series processor that we call Carrizo. Carrizo is a step function improvement in terms of mobile capability. Mark talked about the fact that we were optimizing our roadmap for mobile with Excavator. In the same 28 nanometer technology, we got significant power reductions as well as performance improvements based on design. So what does that mean for us? From a graphics side, 40% performance improvement over our competition. We will win handily on that. What have we also done? What are the applications that really need this type of technology? We're really looking at video streaming and how important that is when you look at the form factors. This will be the first APU in the industry that has hardware-assisted HEVC. That will really improve our battery life and improve the smoothness of play. And so we have up to 2x the battery life here in this form factor. Carrizo is ramping very well. We started first volume shipments in the first quarter at a small level, significant volume shipments in the second quarter, and OEMs will be announcing systems so that they're ready for back to school this season. So very aligned to the overall PC market season. Okay, commercial. Commercial is an exciting area for us. You might have seen on my earlier charts in the CEO deck, I talked about commercial as being a strategic area for profitable growth. We like the business. We like the fact that there's a longevity to the business. We started really focusing on this in terms of design wins and customer over the last, I would say, 12 months or so. We've doubled our commercial client design wins. We've increased our pipeline. We've also adopted to things that are important in the commercial business in terms of security, in terms of image stability, in terms of platform longevity. And we're also introducing Carrizo into our commercial lineup as well in the second half of this year. You're going to continue to hear more about our commercial successes. We're going to continue to invest in this area, and it's an important area for us going forward. Okay, finally, workstation graphics. Workstation graphics, again, this is an area where I would say we have been traditionally underrepresented. We have lots of hardware, good hardware in this area. What we haven't done is spent as much time on the enablement. So some of the key wins, powering the Apple Mac Pro, as I said, beautiful system. We now have a very strong lineup with HP and Dell for their workstation offerings. And they are the strongest workstation players out there with FirePro. And then when you look at the ecosystem, and Forrest is going to talk more about it, it is about enabling the ecosystem. Enabling the ecosystem with the top ISVs that are servicing the workstation market. We've made progress in this area. We're going to continue to make progress going forward. So that gives you an idea of our 2015 product focus for computing and graphics. Now let me spend the last few minutes talking about future innovation and what we're doing in this business going forward. I did say earlier, it is about the technology, and it is about the technology. So Mark talked about the investments that we're making in cores, and cores on the CPU side and the graphics side. What I'd like to do is talk to you about how we translate that into products. There are a couple of key areas that we're focusing when we look at the computing and graphics business. First one is very simple platform infrastructure. We want to make it easy for customers to adopt our technology on the OEM side and on the end user side. So I'll show you how we do that. The second is Zen, bringing Zen throughout our product portfolio. That is really critical for us to gain profitable share. And the third point is perhaps an evolution of our thinking in terms of where to target products in this area. And I'll talk about scalable platform design points. So a little bit about our roadmap. Our roadmap in 2015, I talked about. At the low end, we have Mullins APUs. Our Carrizo lineup will be launched in the second quarter this year, and you'll see OEM systems in market. On the desktop side, we have Kaveri and Vishera as the two players on the desktop side. If you take a look at this roadmap, it's a strong roadmap, particularly in the mobile segment. It's a strong roadmap. It also has 4 different infrastructures going forward. When you look at 2016, you'll see that simplicity that we're looking for. How to make it easy for customers to develop with AMD. On the mobile side, we'll do our 7th generation A-series APU. It'll have the same platform infrastructure as our 2015 products. So OEMs will be able to seamlessly move to our next generation APUs. Very, very important at the high end, we are reinvesting in desktop FX processors at the high end with introducing the Zen core. That's a big change for us. When we looked at the market and looked at the opportunities, high performance compute makes a difference. High performance in compute in desktop makes a big difference. So we will introduce Zen first at AMD in the desktop space. We will also then have a new infrastructure with AM4 that will share both our APUs and CPUs so that that infrastructure can be shared across the board. So that gives you an idea of how we're thinking about enabling our customers with our product portfolio. Just a little bit more detail, and I know you guys want a lot more detail, but just a little bit more detail on our 2016. As I said, leading with our FX CPUs, it's going to be really exciting to be able to demonstrate Zen cores next year. And that's really critical for us. They will be high core count, they will include multi-threading, they will have the platform structure supporting DDR4. As we go to the 7th generation APUs, the mobile market wants performance per watt. We have demonstrated performance per watt with Carrizo. We're going to continue to demonstrate performance per watt with our 7th generation APUs. And then as we move over to our high performance GPUs, again, the high bandwidth memory introduction in 2015 is very significant. However, it's not just about one data point. It's about what we do going forward. Introducing FinFET process technology on the GPUs will give us substantial performance per watt improvements in addition to the architectural improvements that Mark talked about. ensuring that we get second generation HBM. We've now gotten experience with the first generation, really extending that to higher bandwidth and more performance. And then with the VR and AR acceleration that we're talking about. So this gives you an idea of the portfolio that we will have in 2016 going forward for computing and graphics. And then I want to give you a little bit of how we're thinking about the market going forward and how we think about this business. Again, computing and graphics is a critical piece of the AMD business. Why is it critical? All of the technology that we talked about that Mark is developing, it services both computing and graphics business as well as the enterprise embedded and semi-custom. It's actually a very synergistic product portfolio. If you look at what we've done over the last 5 years and some of the decisions that were made, we focused very, very heavily on mobile, especially the mobile notebooks, and driving the APU roadmap. We made good progress. As I said, APUs are now everywhere. They're in PCs, they're in phones, they're in tablets, they're everywhere. This is one vector of where innovation is going. If you look at the vectors around computing innovation and graphics innovation, that entire IoT picture is going to need lots of different combinations. There are going to be some vectors that are going to need more compute performance. We need to have an answer to that. Our answer is the FX CPU with compute leadership. There are certain vectors that are going to want more graphics, gaming, or GPU compute performance. We talked about our next generation technology we're launching in 2015. We're going to extend that leadership into 2016. And then when you think about heterogeneous computing leadership, it is about APUs that are monolithic. It's also about putting together larger scale APUs that Forrest will talk about. So we will have, with this technology, vectors to address much more competitively all of these areas of the market. And that's what really makes me excited about the computing and graphics business for AMD. Now, let me finish with a couple of things. Look, there's no question that we need to understand the market backdrop, and the market backdrop will continue to be something that we look at very closely. We're proud of our product lineup in 2015. As I said, the next 4, 5, 6 weeks, you will see a lot of information from AMD, details about our products, details about our customers and our ecosystem. We're excited about that. I think leading in the key technology inflection points, making sure that we're really monetizing our IP and monetizing our platform investment, very clear. We're going to focus on profitable share growth. That means that it'll be a little bit bumpy at times. We have lost some share. I totally recognize that. We will gain that share back in more profitable segments. And then our future innovation is really enabled by the roadmap that Mark talked about. It's an exciting roadmap. It really is just the beginning, and we have many, many more aspects of it that we'll share over the coming quarters and years. So with that, I think it's actually time for us to take a break. So we get, for those in the room, we have about a 15-minute break with some refreshments in the back, and then for those online, we'll be back shortly. Thank you very much.